So my laboratory studies tuberculosis, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is a very important global cause of morbidity and mortality among humans. About 2 million people die every year of tuberculosis, which is quite a considerable proportion of the total number of deaths worldwide. So TB is a treatable disease. We have antibiotics, have had for many years, that can effectively cure tuberculosis if they are applied diligently. The big problem in treatment of tuberculosis is that it takes a very long time to effect a cure. So antibiotics have to be taken by the patient every day for a period of at least 6 months in order to achieve a reliable cure. And this, as you can understand, if you've ever had to take antibiotics before, is very difficult to accomplish even for a week or two. Over such a long period of time, most patients simply stop taking their drugs. And this is a big problem because it means that these patients who stop taking their drugs are at a very high risk of reactivating, relapsing after they stop taking their meds and developing disease again, which then has to be retreated. They're also at risk for developing drug-resistant tuberculosis, which is increasingly common and in some cases untreatable and fatal. So our lab is interested in understanding why it is so difficult to treat tuberculosis using existing drugs. And the reason that I moved to EPFL, I moved my lab from the United States to EPFL, is because I became convinced in the course of our studies that engineering had a major role to play in helping us tackle this problem. So traditionally, schools are divided, or universities are divided into schools where the engineers sit over here and the biologists sit over here and they never talk to each other. The unique design of the School of Life Sciences at EPFL is to bring these very different communities together to trade expertise and to accomplish science that neither group alone can do. And that's really been our mission in moving here. And so far it's been a really exciting ride. So we're very interested in taking our traditional biological approaches and now incorporating engineering approaches to extend our technical range and to allow us to understand the interaction, in this specific case, of bacteria with antibiotics at the level of individual cells. Because it turns out that the reason it's so difficult to treat tuberculosis is that most of the bacteria that are in the lungs of the patient are rapidly killed by the antibiotics we use. But there's always a subpopulation of cells that are refractory to killing, and it's these cells that necessitate the very long regimens of therapy with anti-tuberculosis drugs. It's these cells that are responsible for reactivating and causing disease again in a patient who's been formerly treated but not to completion. So we want to use engineering tools to dissect the physiology of these refractory cells, which we call persisters, so that we can understand the mechanisms that allow them to behave differently in the face of drugs compared to their genetically identical siblings who are killed. I'm going to talk about exactly what I just described, which is one component of the work in my lab. The work that I'm going to show, basically I'm going to show some home movies. Basically a series of movies that we've taken using time-lapse microscopy in conjunction with microfluidics. These are systems that allow us to grow the bacteria in a controlled environment, to add and remove drugs at will, and to monitor using microscopy the behavior in real time of cells as they grow in the absence of drug, are then exposed to a drug, and how they cope with that and survive or die, and then how they behave after the drug is removed. So using these kinds of approaches, combining microfluidics, also microelectromechanical systems that we're using, again, in conjunction with collaborators in the School of Engineering, with time-lapse microscopy, which is an old trick of biologists, using those two technologies in conjunction is really what's allowed us now to probe the behavior of bacteria and the individuality of bacterial behavior in response to antibiotics. And we found some rather shocking things, I think it's fair to say, that have really forced us to change our thinking about how antibiotics kill bacteria and why some bacteria are not killed. Well, since it's to the alumni, I would say that I'm really excited to have recently joined the faculty here at EPFL, and I think the mission that has been defined for EPFL, bringing together very different disciplines, life sciences and engineering, is pretty unique in the world. It's why I'm here, and I think it's the future of science.